Welcome back to my Final Fantasy XIV drama series. Today's drama story is about the crazy cat girl. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button. Okay, I will say that this story is long, but good long. So if you want to grab a drink, now is the time to grab a drink. If you want to grab food, grab food. Oh yeah, and since we're in the open world, if you really want to showcase a mount in the video, you know, could be somewhere in the back area showcasing your mount. Oh. If you want to showcase your mount, boom, big ass whale. Okay, guys. The big airship. Beautiful. That's nice. I think you guys did a good job. You guys are gonna love the title of this story. This story is titled The Crazy Cat Girl. Let's begin. The story begins around the original days of ARR on Brynhildr. These were the days when DPS had TP costs on everything, and it was easier to call/yell for a res when you died in the world versus spending a lot of gil to get resurrected at the Aetherite and teleported back. Oh my goodness, the good old days when you had to shout for a res. That sounds so cool. I was pretty new to the game, but it was before Heavensward, so the game hadn't been out for very long. Anyways, I had recently died to the buffalo out in Middle Lanosia when I met her. Let's call her Zeal. Zeal found me before I could call for a res and helped me. She was very nice and charismatic. It felt like she knew exactly what to say to make me smile. She helped me with my MSQ and told me basic commands and functions I hadn't grasped yet. We talked for hours, her helping me and following me around on her mount and taking down my stray enemies. I felt comforted and safe by her presence, and she always complimented my knowledge of the game, even as a sprout. Eventually, she invited me to the FC that she was part of. I agreed, and everyone was nice and talkative and very, very active. Any questions I had, they would help, and eventually I grew to be everyone's go-to healer for raids and trials. Zeal was also in the active crowd, going AFK in Limsa and keeping the game running 24/7. She was in the top tier crowd, the ones that had gotten the best gear and went through all the raids and trials almost as soon as they dropped. She was an Omnicrafter and Gatherer. Most of the things in the FC chest for Sprouts and Raiders alike was from her. It was rare to see her offline, and even if she was, she'd always be messaging me over Skype. Yes, that's how old this story is. Discord didn't even exist yet. We were using Skype. After meeting everyone, I logged off for the day, and when I logged back on, Zeal was right there asking me how I was doing and partying up. She again helped me all day, asking me questions about myself every so often. I didn't see it as a red flag when she asked my IRL gender the second time we ever spoke, and I certainly was too wrapped up in the changing of topics to notice that she didn't answer me back with her own gender. Zeal was a cat girl in the game, as was I. Back then, I just assumed everyone played their own gender in video games for the most part. But everyone falls to the cat girls eventually, even now as much as back then, LOL. A couple of days go by after the first meeting, and Zeal starts flirting. At first it was flattering comments that I didn't think were anything more, but she got more and more obvious about them. She'd party up immediately when I came online, and asked what I was working on that day. She also asked more personal questions like where I lived, my friends' names, and what I had done before I had gotten online. Friends' names. At one point, she asked about my sexuality. This was the only question she answered back about herself. I told her I was a lesbian, and she told me she was also a lesbian. Back in 2013, this was a big deal. Huge even. I'd only ever had friends on Tumblr, and now I had met someone that I could share a game with. I was so ecstatic over this immediate bond, I didn't even mind that most things I asked her was always replied back in half an answer or something usually depressing. Whenever I asked her the same questions, she would answer the same way. Zeal said she had no friends and that she had no life. She had nothing going on for her. I don't think she even told me where she lived, but she was so kind to everyone around her, it felt like a tragedy. This person was just like me, using the game and friends to get away from their life. It felt like two halves of the same coin. This kind of talk continued even into dungeons, where she'd tell me and we'd have a whole whisper conversation. It was relentless how much we spoke, but I didn't see it as anything but a friendly person helping me with the game and being, well, a friend. After flirting back and getting to the point of almost ERPing, I was pretty happy to have met someone like her. She was protective of me when it came to people leaving me behind in Prey before everyone had to wait in the cutscene and was a 24-man raid, and she always waited behind for me when I was slower getting a mechanic down. Wow, that's nice. Despite not knowing much about her life, I still felt close to her, and we'd joke and laugh all day. I got to the point of being comfortable enough to flirt back and forth like I do with a lot of friends, and we both told each other it didn't mean anything more. There were hiccups in this friendship between Zeal and I, though. I made friends of my own that I brought into the FC through casual talking in dungeons and helping people with the game. Back in this time, it was acceptable to offer a quick word of advice to a tank's rotation or helping a DPS crank out bigger numbers by squeezing in one more spell. This is how I met Quilla. Quilla and I met in some lower ranked dungeon while I was leveling an alt. She was running a black mage. After complaining she didn't like black mage because of the slow and low damage, I gave her advice, since my black mage was a much higher level, about how the rotation is supposed to be ran. She was hard casting Blizzard and cutting off her fire rotation early. After the dungeon, we friended each other. She and I were on the same server, and we met up to do content together. It wasn't long until Zeal came around, while Quilla and I were laughing together, and I invited her into the FC. A few months go by, and Quilla is nice, but very negative. She would constantly tell me her problems, and if she saw the FC chat was active, she'd stop whatever she was saying to me in private to lament to everyone else. She wasn't exactly seeking attention for its sake. She just had a bad life and mental health problems to see how her own actions would really appear to others. After a few more stories from Quilla about her life, especially how she had nothing going for her, Zeal popped into my DMs and asked more about Quilla. I didn't tell her anything that wasn't already said by Quilla herself, but I mentioned my own feelings on the matter. I hadn't been diagnosed yet, but I had clinical depression that I later found out years after this. Quilla was draining any battery I did have without me realizing it. And when I told Zeal, she had a plan. Zeal told me, I'll try to do better at talking to her when we're all in parties together. That way, you can get some rest. I thanked Zeal profusely. Quilla was a friend, and I wanted to help her even if that meant overexerting my own mental health. By having someone else willing to help, I felt for a time things looked up. That was until Quilla and Zeal started openly flirting in the FC chat and around me. I thought Zeal liked me. I thought Zeal's goal was to help Quilla feel better, not practically make out in the FC chat. I'll spare any negative emotion I felt about this and instead make it a long story short. I went to Quilla and asked what was going on, and she said Zeal helped her with her life problems and she loved her. I held my tongue about how Zeal had treated me the same and told her I was so happy for them. I was okay with them being closer. I just wished I didn't feel like I was betrayed in some way. This is what I told Zeal in private, and she told me how sorry she was and how I was still her best friend. Zeal told me that she didn't ever want to lose me. I thought about how I could just let it all go and be happy for them. They were my closest friends in the game after all. From then on, Quilla would only come to me about some negativity from her IRL life. She felt like Zeal wasn't being much help at this time. Quilla told me, Zeal's not really even listening to me. Zeal just wants sex. I helped her as best as I could, and Zeal was buzzing around my ear at the same time. If I wasn't helping one, I was helping the other. I felt like a ping pong going back and forth. Even though I felt hurt and betrayed about how the whole relationship went down between us all, I still wanted to help them. For better or worse, I thought. But that's when it all came crashing down. What do you guys think is gonna happen? One day before I logged off for the night, Zeal told me she had something really important to tell me. I asked her what it was, but she kept responding that she was worried that she'd ruin everything and she was scared to tell me. I told her nothing she says can ruin anything and to trust me and that everything was going to be okay. I told her I cared about her and she's such a good friend. And I want to be that friend for her too. That's when things were about to get real. You guys are too good at this. The next message I got was Zeal telling me, I know this is out of left field, but I'm actually a guy. He was actually a man in real life. All this time, he had been playing and using she/her pronouns and calling himself a woman, even in Skype and in the FC chat when talking about IRL. I was thinking, wait, maybe he just identified as a woman or at least used the she/her pronouns. Tale as old as time. I told him I was really confused and asked what he meant. Zeal didn't answer for a second, so I repeated, no, seriously, what do you mean you're a guy? Finally, he told me, well, I didn't want to tell you I was a guy because you're a lesbian. I asked what that had to do with anything, and he confessed he had feelings for me, and if he had told me sooner, he thought I would have stopped talking to him. He said because we spent so much time together at this point, which was a year and a half, and created that bond, it was easier for him to tell me the truth. At this exact point in time, I don't even think he confessed this to Quilla yet. Needless to say, I was doubly shocked. A year and a half? Holy moly. A year and a half of them knowing each other. I feel ashamed and I don't even know that person. I stared at him in the game and I didn't say anything for a second. Eventually, I told him that I'm sorry and I didn't mean to lead him on, completely making myself into the bad guy, even though I know now that I hadn't done anything wrong. I told him I wanted to be his friend and that was it. No more flirting, no more of him trying to lead me into ERPing. While Quilla and him were going out / not going out, he had told me that she didn't care if we flirted. Zeal flirted with everyone, and it was something Quilla just accepted and moved on with because everyone took it as jokes. The trying to lead me into ERPing, however, had only started up again a couple of days before this night. He sulked for a few hours after this, and after I asked about Quilla with little to no answer. I could barely keep my eyes open anymore until I logged off. We did a normal routine after that, like nothing had happened. He was a bit more resigned, but that was it. Quilla wasn't around much at this time. When she did come on, she'd be sadder than usual before logging off. Then there came a day where I was burnt out with the MSQ and needed to work through side quests. I logged on and instantly Zeal tried to party up with me. I declined the invite and whispered to Zeal that I didn't want to party today because I didn't want to bore him with side quest content. He flipped out. He sent me a barrage of whispers telling me that it really hurt him, asked me why I didn't want to party, and that of course he wanted to help me. Told me that his day was horrible and he had been looking forward to seeing me online. He kept repeating over and over that just because he was a guy doesn't change anything and I shouldn't be acting like I did. I was so flabbergasted that I just partied up with him and apologized. Zeal was quite dramatic and I didn't want to make it worse. From that day on, I didn't want to party up due to being too tired to speak to people. Zeal would guilt trip me into doing it anyway. He would keep telling me about his horrible days and how seeing me smile in game was more than enough for him. I couldn't escape him, even when I logged off because we were friends on Skype. If I left the game earlier than usual and if I didn't answer on Skype for more than 30 minutes, he'd send another and another and another message until the whole screen was taken up by one-way responses. One day, I told him how I was going to be gone from the game because I was going to see my girlfriend for a week. It had been only a month of knowing her, which probably wasn't smart, but I needed to take a break from the anxiety of the game, questioning Quilla's safety with her absence, and Zeal looming over me. Oh, so Quilla being away from the game was looming over the OP, like where is she? What's going on? At this point, it had been a few months after he told me the truth. He again flooded my chat asking me how long I'd be gone for, if I'd be on Skype to chat still, what my girlfriend's name was, where she lived, etc. I reminded him that I told him all about this when she and I had first started talking, and the broad country in which she lived. I asked about Quilla, which he told me that they were just not together anymore and how things were really bad for him. I told him he needed to find more friends and that I couldn't be there for him all the time anymore. He got sullen again after that, telling me his feelings again and telling me how hurt he was that I didn't like him the way he loved me. I apologized again and told him I couldn't change myself and I wished he would be happy for me. He tried to be happy for me that night and we dropped the topic. After I came back from my vacation with my then girlfriend, I logged on to multiple mail envelopes in game. Most were from Zeal telling me about an FC wedding that was taking place that I was invited to. I finally got to the actual invitation after 20 plus messages. A lovely couple in our FC were having the bonding ceremony, and seeing as I hadn't experienced an in-game wedding before, I agreed to go. Boy, that was a dumb decision. After I said as much in the FC chat, every excited message about me going was overshadowed by Zeal, who was in my whispers asking if I wanted to go with him and if I'd wear a feminine outfit for him. At this time, I was wearing the iconic Sailor Boy blue motif, or the suit and dress pants. He pressured me so much that I gave in and told him, "Fine, yes, I'll go with you. I'll look up to see if I like any glamours." He was my friend, and he was my only friend active at the time. I could suck it up for one event. Sure, no biggie. It was just a lot of pressure. He thanked me profusely, and I thought it was done, so I logged out for dinner. A few hours later, I came back online to a swarm of FC whispers. "You and Zeal dating? Wait, I thought you were gay. Why is Zeal saying you're together all of a sudden?" I was shocked. There were so many people in my FC trying to talk to me. I mixed up multiple replies to the point I had accidentally responded to a whisper from Zeal when it was meant for an FC member. Oh no! It took Zeal a very long time to answer. After a few members in the FC knew the truth that no, Zeal and I are not dating, and things simmered down, that's when Zeal finally said, "You said you were going to the ceremony with me. That means we're together, right?" My jaw hit the floor. I yelled at him, "Of course that doesn't mean we're together. I told you I have a girlfriend." He said, "Well, that doesn't mean we can't be together in game. We can just be in-game boyfriend and girlfriend." I told him that for me, that's not how it works. And even if I did want to be with someone in game, it would be with a woman. He responded that he was a woman in game, and if I didn't like cat girls anymore, he could change to some other race. Heaven's word had just dropped, and we had been talking about Fantasia-ing into auras. I told him that's just not how it works, and I wouldn't feel comfortable having to ERP with a guy on the other side of the screen. Now that I'm older and more stable in myself as a lesbian, and I don't care who's on the other end, because it's all fantasy / make-believe. At the time, it wasn't okay because he was using the game as a means for real dating, and it felt like he was usurping my sexuality for his own gains. And the fact he was intentionally keeping that he was a guy's secret because of my sexuality conflicted with his motives. It just wasn't okay. Zeal said he didn't know what to do, and for the first time in months, he logged off. Wow, from someone who played 24/7, finally logging off. Everyone in the FC started chatting in the actual chat. They started asking if Zeal was really offline, and they told each other to check his alts. Yeah, that must have been like weird. Like, what? He logged off. He never logs off. He was officially offline, and that's when they asked me what had happened. I was crying, realizing I might have lost a friend, good or bad, and I didn't know what to do. Quilla was nowhere in sight, and besides that, she wasn't a very good friend to me after all the drama had happened. The FC was really kind, telling me it wasn't my fault, and this happened often with Zeal. I can't fully remember the details now, but the IRL married couple in the FC, who were the ones getting married in the game, told me all these stories about how Zeal tried to worm his way into their marriage multiple times before the FC as a whole told him to stop or that he would be kicked. They said while they knew he was joking, it was getting too much and people felt uncomfortable. That's what all of this was to them? A joke? There were others that had similar things to say, but I was too upset to realize that this guy does this basically to any female character in game, especially the cat girls. I don't know why they let Zeal stay in their FC, but I guess it was because they thought he was harmless. They told me if I had confided in someone about it, they would have told him to stop on my behalf because they told me I was too nice to do it myself. I agreed with them at the time and apologized for not telling someone sooner. Now when I look back on this, I realize how shitty that was of them as FC leaders. I had just hit 20 at the time, and most of them were in their mid-20s or 30s. I can't remember fully, but I think Zeal was 25 to 27. I couldn't understand how they would let teens and fresh adults into an environment that they knew had a person like Zeal isolating, pressuring, lying, and trying to date these new members in. He was very charismatic, always laughing with the higher-ups and contributing a lot to the FC itself. Even the married couple that said he tried to worm his way into their marriage said that they just thought it was a joke, but he better not do it again. I always saw them chatting for the 2 years I was in the FC like nothing had ever happened. I felt so isolated, so lost. How could I have ever gone to them when they knew of what he did? That they thought Zeal was just harmless and joking around. To them, as established adults, it might have been. But for depressed and lonely teens and young adults, it was so much more. Damn. It's hard to know how much the FC leaders really knew about Zeal, but if they heard many stories from other FC members about Zeal, then yeah, that is a red flag. Zeal may have been kissing up to the FC leaders. Not sure. There's probably many factors. I also think the internet culture back then was so different how it is today. Like, so many people would say, oh, it's just a joke. It's harmless. Way more back then. Today, I like that the internet culture has adapted to be more understanding and empathetic to people's situations. Like, even, you know, sexism, like we talked about earlier, back before was way worse than it is today. The internet culture is just constantly evolving to be better, I'd say. But yeah, I feel like back then, what they're telling me just seems like it's because everyone just said, yeah, it's just a joke. Anyways, Zeal and I barely spoke after that. I'd anxiously log on, see that he was on as well, and he wouldn't reach out or try to send a party invitation. After that, my current girlfriend and I broke up, and I took a break from the game, mostly because I had gotten her into the game in the last few weeks of all of this Zeal drama, and it didn't feel right playing without her. When I came back to the game, Zeal reached out and we caught up a little. I didn't tell him anything about my life, but it was amicable. The FC was still alive and happy, and it was nice catching up with everyone. I still felt betrayed by them, but it was nice seeing more of the older members that didn't know about Zeal's behavior and were my close friends. When I looked in the FC, I realized that Zeal and Quilla wasn't there anymore. They had left or had both been kicked. I don't know which, and I didn't want to bring it up, even though I had close friends in the FC that I could ask. It was better to just drop it forever and let it go. I took an extended break from the game after Stormblood and only briefly came back at the end of Shadowbringers. My FC had either disbanded or kicked me, but I realized that Zeal's character name wasn't there anymore, and a lot of people that were my friends were now gone. I believe Zeal deleted his character as well as a couple of other friends. I was sort of lost at that point, so I logged off and I didn't pick up the game again until Endwalker. To this day, I wonder if Zeal actually deleted or if he's just got a different name. Quilla and other friends also haven't logged on for years. I truly hope they're living their best lives, and I'm sorry I wasn't there more. I've switched servers multiple times by then, and I don't care to give Zeal more of my energy trying to figure out if he's still around and kicking. I still have many of my old friends on my friends list, hoping for the day they pop back online. I'm with an amazing person now, and I'm playing the game with her as well as a couple of friends. I wish the social atmosphere was the same as back then, or maybe I just need to go back to Brynhilder, lol. But regardless, I'm in a much happier place and I'm surrounded by people who don't gaslight or manipulate me for their own gains. One last note I'd like to mention is when he had logged off, when Zeal had logged off that first time and caused such an uproar, one person in the FC did cheer me up by saying, yeah, he did the same thing to me because of my cat girl, but he stopped real quick when I told him I was a guy. I guess the reverse doesn't apply, does it, Zeal? Thank you for listening to my story. The end. I just can't believe like a whole year and a half just talking to this person you think is a girl, you know, he has a pronoun she, her, and then all of a sudden they tell you I'm actually a guy. That would mess me up with my pronouns for them for the rest of my time hanging out with them. Like I would always just be like she, her, oh, I meant him, her. Like it would mess me up for sure. My old guild leader did something similar in other MMOs, but it lasted for 3+ years. Some people do that, yeah. I have heard of stories here and there of people like guys playing as a girl to get more items in video games. That's it, I'm gonna fan it to a femro now. I think people are more alert about these things, you know? Because back then, the internet and gaming, like I don't know, those were still the early days of like MMOs and stuff like that, and you know we fall for those scams, those early day gaming scams, and a guy pretending to be a girl I would say is an early scam. But nowadays we know better. We've heard all the stories. We can't be easily tricked anymore. Different times. I mean, there's still, trust me, there's still guys out there pretending to be girls. It's just lying. Like it sucks. Like it sucks to tell someone, yeah, I'm a girl or I'm a lesbian, or like, and they're actually not IRL. You assume everyone is a male. I have a friend that assumes everyone's a male, and I know you guys can say you can hear them on voice, just get them on a voice call and hear them. Sometimes even that is a trick. Like sometimes they can just put a female voice changer. You can get tricked even further down the rabbit hole. So now a lot of people are learning the only way I for sure believe that it is as a girl if I see a video. People are now saying video call is the only way you can truly know. It's crazy the lengths that people will go to sometimes. Don't they have filters for that? Do you think they're... No, you can tell when someone's using a filter for changing their entire face to look like from a guy to a girl, right? If they said their camera is broken, that's #1 red flag. It might be. Give them the benefit of the doubt, but like if they keep making the same excuse over and over again, then yeah, probably there's something maybe that they're hiding. And video filters isn't that advanced yet. Yeah, it's light filters that we see now, like you know how Instagram has those dog noses or something like that, or like stuff that hides like your blemishes, but nothing crazy drastic. Dude, imagine the future. It will be probably a filter for me in the future to look like a young dude. I don't have the voice for it though. Technology will get better. That was a long story, but I think it was a really, really, really good story. See, I love it when people really take me on an adventure like that, and from start to end we know how they were feeling, the people they met along the way. As an English teacher, I am proud. English teacher in the Final Fantasy XIV drama side. Let me know in the comments below what you thought about this Final Fantasy XIV drama story. If you have any of your own drama stories that you'd like me to share and read out anonymously, feel free to reach out to my Discord, discord.gg/Pathra. And a big thank you to my kind members who support my YouTube content.